Welcome to The Daily. It's Tuesday, August 2nd with Greg Lawless. I'm Jason Seguini. The big news coming out of yesterday, of course, Jurgen Klinsmann introduced to the media. Greg, and you were there.
I was, and what he said was actually, in my mind, not that much. He talked about re-energizing the U.S. national team. He talked about having a conversation with America about what its style should be, but he didn't really present anything concrete about how he envisions this program working out going forward. The really interesting stuff that came out, I thought, was that he said he's going to audition assistant coaches over the next couple of games. Remember, the U.S. play against Mexico on the 10th, and then early in September they play Costa Rica and they play Belgium. So he's got a chance to do that. He also talked about how this program has grown over the last 13 years. That since he's been living in the United States, he believes that the youth is very important, and he's going to take a role in youth. But nothing really concrete came out of this in terms of how he would like the U.S. national team to play. Mainly, he said he's going to do with the U.S. what he did in Germany, which is talk to a lot of people. I've already talked to several journalists who said Klinsmann has reached out to say, I'd like to pick your brain. So that's pretty interesting, very democratic process underway.
All right, you mentioned that game against Mexico next week. Klinsmann did say at the press conference that he expects to announce the roster for that game on Wednesday. So stay tuned to MLSsoccer.com for that. Moving on, there's a game tonight, Champions League qualifier. Toronto headed down to Nicaragua. They have a 2-1 advantage on aggregate, though.
Yeah, Real Esteli, the champions from Nicaragua, gave them a run for their money up at BMO Field, because that 2-1 victory with Joao Plata getting those 2 goals may not be enough on the away leg. I think the most important thing is who's going to play in goal. Aaron Venter played Milos Kocic last week. Will he play Stefan Frei, who has been in terrific form in the league and showed it last weekend against Portland in that 2-2 draw? 9 saves in that game. So I think Frei needs to be in there if they're going to get the result.
Yeah, Kocic with that error at the end of the game, giving up the important away goal. So we'll see if Frei gets in the net to shut them down. They're riding that momentum from the comeback against Portland. Moving on, other news in the Eastern Conference, and not so good for the Houston Dynamo. Will Bruin and Danny Cruz now look to be out for long-term injuries.
Yeah, and this robs Dominic Kinnear of some of his options, particularly in the depth, because with Brian Ching coming back and showing that he's in form again, remember 2 goals last weekend against Seattle, Will Bruin's absence is going to hurt the depth there. So, I think they'll be okay, but it's a question of if anybody goes down, if anybody gets a red card, who's going to take up that space. In the midfield, I think Cruz has shown lots of development this year. However, Colin Clark coming back, he's starting to find his form, starting to find his speed. He got a goal last week against Seattle as well. That gives them a little bit more of an option there. However, it's really just a question of depth as the season wears on.
All right, well, Greg, I should mention as we talk about these injuries, fans should be following the injury reports for their fantasy teams.
Definitely.
Salary Cap Challenge Season 2 is underway. It's a second chance. If you didn't do so well in the first season, which I know you didn't, Greg, you can get back out there for Season 2 and try to win some prizes. I
don't expect myself to do much better in the second game either. I've never been a very good fantasy player, but there are some great prizes on offer here. The winner of Salary Cap Challenge in Season 2 gets a trip to the 2012 All-Star Game. So make sure you build out your team and see if you can beat everybody else.
Yeah, and if you want to play against us, you can join the Extra Time Radio League. The password for that league is Simon Says.
Oh, surprisingly.
All right, I want to mention just one more thing. Yesterday we had Extra Time Radio. We had Robert Warzija, the coach of the first place Columbus Crew, on, joining Brian Strauss, who talked a lot about the Jurgen Klinsmann announcement.
And Warzija was great. He put out a challenge to his fellow Polish countryman, the head coach from the Philadelphia Union, Peter Novak, but it wasn't a challenge on the soccer field. It was a challenge at the ping pong table.
Yeah, more to come on that. We definitely want to follow up on that. That's all we have for The Daily today. We'll be back tomorrow with more.